Today's video is about the new I-bond that just was released November 1st. Actually, they let the cat out of the bag yesterday on October 31st, so I'm already a little late to the party for this video. Nevertheless, I'll try to make that up for you in terms of content and commentary here. This is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the new I-bond rate, both its variable rate and its fixed rate. Then we'll go into the decision whether to buy, hold, sell, or wait to buy. Lastly, I'm going to wrap this video up with a warning that every I-bond investor should know, particularly if you're about to buy a new I-bond with a new fixed rate. All right, ta-da, the new series I-bond rate for the next 6 months beginning November 1st out through April 30th will be 5.27%. Now that is the rate for new purchases. That is important to know. If you already own an I-bond, then I'll show you a chart here in just a little minute where you can figure out what your interest rate will be for your particular I-bond. But for new I-bond purchases, that's what it's going to be, 5.27%. How did they get to that? Hopefully you already know that the I-bond has two components to its rate. There is a fixed rate that applies for the life of the I-bond, that particular I-bond that you purchase. So for this fixed rate of 1.3%, that is for every I-bond that's purchased between November 1st of 2023 and April 30th of 2024. Then they add to that the semi-annual inflation rate, or the inflation component of that. That's calculated at 1.97%. You may be thinking, wait a minute, that's less than what I heard it was going to be. Remember that this is the semi-annual inflation rate. To get the annualized rate, they're going to double that here in this formula, so that's where the 2 times that inflation rate comes out. We won't go through all the math, but if you get to the end, you'll see 5.27%. Understand that that is an annualized rate. Your money is not going to earn 5.27% in the next 6 months. That is going to be as if it was for a whole year. That allows you to compare rates. It gets really difficult to compare rates when some things are on a monthly basis, like T-bills. Some things are on an annual basis. Some things are semi-annual. So this just allows us to compare apples to apples when we use annualized rates. If you are wondering when your I-bond will change its rates, the U.S. Treasury, Treasury Direct makes this pretty easy, and you can just stop the video here and look to see when you purchase an I-bond and therefore when its rate will change. All right, I mentioned just a minute ago I would show you a chart that makes it easy to figure out what your particular I-bond will be earning. This is courtesy of the folks at Treasury Direct. I will put a link to this page down in the notes so that you can get to this easily. The way that you're going to do this is you're going to come to the date that you purchased your I-bond, which is over here. This far left column will show the issue date. If you're wondering what the fixed rate is for your particular I-bond, you can see that here in this second column. We're going to highlight that here in just a minute. So the way that you can figure out what your particular interest rate is go to the date that you purchased your I-bond. Just for gee whiz sake, we will choose November of 2012. At that time, the fixed rate was 0%, so that's going to make it really easy to figure out what your I-bond rate is. It's going to be whatever the semi-annual inflation rate is times 2. So in this case, 3.94% is what an I-bond would earn during that time. However, if you were lucky enough to have purchased one way back here in September of 1998, you have a fixed rate of 3.4%, which means that your current I-bond for the next 6 months, assuming, when I say the next 6 months, of course it varies on when your I-bond was purchased, but for simplicity's sake, we'll use the next 6 months, 7.41%. All right, that's how you can figure out what your I-bond will be earning for the next 6 months. Again, I'll leave the link to this chart in the notes. Now let's just talk about the fixed rate, 1.3%. How does that compare to what fixed rates have looked like in the past? We're going to go to this second line here on this chart then and take a peek at this. 1.3%, the last time it was ever at 1.3% was way back in May of 2007 out to October 30 of 2007. And the last time it was higher than that was immediately before that when it was 1.4%. Prior to that, the I-bond always had a fixed rate that was in the positive. It hadn't been 0%. However, when that financial crisis came along, the I-bond fixed rate plummeted. That's going to lead us then to the decision we're going to try to make: buy, hold, sell, or wait. Let's talk about buy first. Should you be buying I-bonds at its current rate? The big thing you should be paying attention to here is the fixed rate of 1.3%. Because if you're just looking at it for the total rate, really it's not any better than what you can get buying a treasury bill. So I would say if you're interested in buying, you need to know that you would be in this for the long haul. You are interested in holding this for 5 years or more. If you are that type of I-bond buyer, then this could be a great time to buy because, again, you haven't seen a fixed rate this high since 2007. If you are a short-term holder of I-bonds, again, I think you can do at least as well, if not better, with something else like a treasury bill or potentially a CD. Remember that when you buy an I-bond, you have to hold it for at least 5 years if you do not want to pay a 3-month penalty on your interest, meaning when you sell it, if you've held it less than 5 years, you lose the last 3 months of interest. How about selling an I-bond? Should one just go ahead and sell their I-bond right now? Some people may be thinking the I-bond rate isn't as great as it was last year when I purchased it at more than 9% annualized yield, and therefore just go ahead and sell. Well, one of the questions to ask yourself is, do you need the money now? And the other question to ask yourself is, what is actually the current rate that you're getting? If you didn't purchase it on November 1st, but purchased it at a different time, then of course your I-bond rate won't be changing yet. So you need to take a peek at that as well. You need to be asking yourself, can you do better elsewhere with your money? If you think that you can, then this may be a good time to go ahead and sell as well. You should also be asking yourself this important question: do you want to try to convert your I-bond in for a higher fixed rate? Knowing that you still might pay a penalty if you've held it less than 5 years, the amount of time that it might take you to make up that difference can be relatively short, something in the range of 8 to 9 months. So it might be worth it to you to go ahead and sell your I-bond knowing you're going to pay the penalty, but that over the next year you're going to make up the difference, and therefore every year after that be ahead of the game with that higher fixed rate. Now this also leads me to a point that I want to make here, and that's why Ms. Yellen is on the thumbnail for this video. And that is that I think that one of the reasons here that this fixed rate has gone up, besides the fact that real yields have gone up, is that our Treasury Secretary may be trying to keep too many I-bonds from being sold back, or at least try to get people to convert their I-bonds so that the Treasury doesn't have to pay out so much cash in the present. And therefore, I think that part of this decision, whether they would admit it or not, to raise that fixed rate has to do with keeping people from selling all their I-bonds. I think the Treasury and Secretary Yellen may be trying to get people to convert their I-bonds into that higher fixed rate and be able to kick the payment of those, or the redemption of those I-bonds, down the road. Let's talk about whether to hold your I-bond or not. Now, one important reason why you might want to hold it is that you don't need the money, or you don't want to pay that penalty if you've held it for less than 5 years. Another important reason would be if you have a better fixed rate. If you have a fixed rate anywhere better than the 1.3% on an I-bond, then redeeming it right now might not be in your best interest. Again, part of that depends on whether you need the money or not. Let's talk about the wait and see. The great thing about I-bonds is that this fixed rate will apply for the next 6 months. So if you want to just wait and see until, say, a few days before April 30th, do not wait until April 30th, because it takes a few days to put these transactions through. The transaction has to be completed before April 30th. So don't wait until April 30th to purchase, but say you wait till April 25th. You can wait and see what the environment might look like at that time. You can go ahead and wait and see, knowing that you'll get the fixed rate, the 1.3%, and the current total 5.27% annualized for the next 6 months anyway. So one decision could be just to wait and see what the environment looks like in 6 months. Now, Having discussed all of that, I want to point out a warning to you. I say warning, but at least a caution here. And that is, do not assume that the 1.3% fixed rate is a minimum guarantee. What I'm saying is, you are not guaranteed to get 1.3%, at least 1.3%. What am I talking about here? Because this is important for you to understand. There are times when the inflation rate goes negative, and there have been times when the inflation rate has gone negative enough to negate your fixed rate. Let's talk about this because the Treasury makes it known, but people might not understand what I'm talking about. We're going to go back to this main page here on Treasury Direct, the iBond interest rate page, where you can see in big letters the announcement here. We're going to scroll down here, and I want to take you to this part that says combined rate. This is important for you to understand with your iBond and not thinking that you have a minimum guarantee. Let's just talk about this here. It says, because inflation can go up or down, we can have deflation, or the opposite of inflation. Deflation can bring the combined rate down below the fixed rate. So I'm going to show you that here in just a minute on the graph about what they're talking about. It does say, however, if the inflation rate is so negative that would pull the combined rate below zero, we don't let that happen. We stop at zero. So your minimum guarantee, I want you to understand this, is 0%, not necessarily what your fixed rate is. Now let's just look at the chart here, and I'll show you one important time when this has happened, although it has happened more than once. I want you to look at this column here, May of 2009. And you will notice that every single one of the I-bonds at that time for the 6 months was paying 0%. Why was that? Well, if we come down to the inflation rate in May of 2009, it was negative 2.78%. That was enough to overcome every fixed rate out there. Take that negative 2.78% and essentially double it, because we're dealing with annualized rate, and you'll see that that's way more than every fixed rate, because the highest that it has ever been was 3.6% here. So understand that it is not a minimum guarantee. Your minimum guarantee is 0% should inflation go low enough to overcome the fixed rate. Nevertheless, 1.3% is a great fixed rate, and if you are a long-term iBond investor, then it may be well in your interest to buy more or to convert your iBonds into this higher rate depending on what your previous fixed rate has been. Hopefully this was good enough information for you to give us a thumbs up here at Father and Son Investing. I just want to say thanks to everybody who watched the last video. I have wanted to make a video that would get 10,000 views in 24 hours. And we almost did that with the last one. It got to 9.9 thousand. So my goal is to provide you with information that is good enough that at least 10,000 people would want to watch it in 24 hours. I hope this was good enough for you. Please give us a thumbs up. And as always, until next time, enjoy your investing.